Welcome back to the regular meeting of the CalSTRS Teachers Retirement Board. There was no action taken in closed session. We are now on number 6, our Chief Executive Officer report.
Thank you, Madam Chair. In the board packet, there's a comprehensive report with my content in it, and I'm not going to go over much. There's only one thing, I'll give you some time back in your day, that I did want to mention was the appointment of our new Chief Benefits Officer, Jeff Zimmer. Jeff was promoted to this position after a wide search to fill the important leadership position on the executive team. Jeff has been with CalSTRS for 20 years, serving in multiple roles, with his most recent position as the Director of Employer Services for 6 years. He began his role on January 31st and has hit the ground running, leading a staff of more than 450 in service retirement, disability and survivor benefits, employer services, retirement readiness, customer service, and defined contribution programs. This is the largest branch in the organization that services our members in an extraordinarily important role on the executive team. We're super excited. He has fit right in. He's been here for a long time, and we're just really thrilled. So I want everybody to congratulate him. That is it. Thank you.
That is it. Okay, welcome, Jeff, and thank you. Are there any public comments on item number 6?
There are no public comments on item 6.
Okay, item number 7 is our economic impact study. Tom Buffalo.
Good afternoon, Madam Chair, members of the board. Tom Buffalo, Head of Research, and this is the study of the impact of CalSTRS benefits payments on California's economy.
Hold that thought. There turns out there were public comments.
Oh, okay.
So before you get started, let's do that, and then we'll continue.
Okay, if we could get a 1-minute timer for Tim, he would like to cede his second 1 minute to Myra. We have 5 public commenters and they will get 2 minutes each.
Good afternoon. My name is Tim Rabota, and I have been a public school educator for 20 years. I began my career as a teacher, a school psychologist, and a district administrator in several traditional public schools. And I now serve as a director of education services at Pacific Charter Institute. Our charter school organization is a proud participant in CalSTRS, and like many of my colleagues, I contribute to the system just as I did in my previous roles in traditional public schools and district offices. The students we serve are public school students, and the work we do, whether in a district or in a public charter, is fundamentally the same. Charter school networks, like public school districts, oversee multiple schools. Yet CalSTRS has unlawfully denied pension benefits to employees simply because they work for a multi-charter organization. This is not only unfair, but a direct violation of the law's commitment to charter school employees and educators. I urge the board to uphold the rights of all public school employees by implementing a public process that guarantees charter school educators the same CalSTRS benefits as our counterparts in district offices. CalSTRS must immediately cease illegal denials and ensure community employees of California charter school organizations have access to their full retirement benefits.
Thank you for your comment.
And educators should never have to fight for the retirement security they have rightfully earned. Thank you for allowing me to speak, and I'd like to defer my time to Christina De Jesus.
Can we please have a 3-minute timer for this speaker?
Yeah. Good afternoon, board members. My name is Mirna Castrejon. I am the president and CEO of the California Charter Schools Association, the membership and advocacy organization representing the needs of nearly 1,300 high-quality charter public schools. We are vibrant communities of dedicated educators serving public school students. If we were a district, we'd actually be the largest district in the nation, serving 709,000 students, or 12% of all public education students in California, the vast majority of whom experience economic hardship. From the very beginning, the legislature encouraged charter schools to be operated as nonprofit organizations. This has been beneficial to all involved, and the authorizing districts know exactly who is responsible for school operations. Often, nonprofit organizations operate more than one charter, just like districts meet their community's needs by adding new schools. So do charter school organizations. We grow by obtaining approval for additional charter school petitions. For 3 decades, CalSTRS has been a great partner and has welcomed new charter public schools as they enrolled and accepted their monthly contributions to ensure that charter public school employees have secure retirements. These public school employees serve public school students working as teachers, supporting the instructional program, working in counseling, planning courses, evaluating instructional programs, selecting, evaluating instructional and curricular materials, basically all the things that CalSTRS recognizes as creditable service, exactly the kind of work that mirrors school district employees. Yet, in the last 2 years, CalSTRS has reversed course and clawed back well-earned retirement benefits for these public school employees. CalSTRS states that the same educator who performs creditable service for one charter suddenly stops performing that creditable service overnight when she or he provides that service to a second charter school operated by the same organization, even where that employee is performing exactly the same activities as the district and the day before. CalSTRS has stated that these actions are justified because these organizations have grown from one charter to 2 or more. But do understand, these organizations remain and always have been public schools subject to public transparency requirements and the obligation to serve all public school students, whether they operate one charter or 10. And all their work of these dedicated public school employees continues to be creditable service. Your recent actions alarm us. You have essentially said that the work that these dedicated long-term public school educators is not valid. Not because the person stopped performing creditable service, but because they are doing these activities for an organization that serves even more students. You are denying retirement benefits to individuals who are performing exactly the same service. That is why we are here today. We just came from a 4,000 strong charter conference. We ask that you please immediately return to your 3-decade practice of including our employees.
Thank you for your comments. If we could get a 2-minute timer for the next speaker, please. Our next speaker will be Tony. I apologize. Our next speaker is Christina.
Good afternoon, members of the CalSTRS board. My name is Christina De Jesus, and I'm the superintendent of Green Dot Public Schools, a public charter organization that serves 10,000 students in 18 schools in Los Angeles. I stand before you today on behalf of thousands of dedicated public educators who work in California's charter schools, educators who, like their district counterparts, have committed their careers to serving our students, strengthening our communities, and upholding the promise of public education. CalSTRS has a clear mission, securing the financial future and sustaining the trust of California's educators. Your vision promises a secure retirement as a reward for our service, and yet today, you are failing to uphold the promise for educators working in charter schools across the state. Green Dot Public Schools has operated as a public school system for 25 years. We are funded by public dollars. We are accountable to the public, just as traditional schools at districts are. Green Dot also partners with public CTA-affiliated unions and operates schools formerly run by districts. Our educators have paid into CalSTRS for decades, trusting that their contributions would be honored. Instead, we now see cases like that of Kelly Hurley, a former Green Dot employee whose retirement was cut by 56% and who was denied his appeal rights by CalSTRS staff despite serving nearly 20 years in traditional district prior to Green Dot. Across the state, thousands of public employees working in charter organizations could be impacted. For over 30 years, you have taken our contributions and earned interest on those contributions, now only to claim that we are ineligible. This is not just a policy shift, it's a betrayal of trust. CalSTRS past practices, internal documents, and historical interpretations have consistently affirmed that public charter school employees are eligible participants. This sudden reversal raises serious concerns about fairness, transparency, and legal compliance. CalSTRS' mission is to secure the financial future of California's educators. The time to honor that mission is now. Thank you.
Thank you for your comment. Our next speaker will be Tony.
All right. Good afternoon, Madam Chair, board members. Sorry, my voice is a little down. We were cheering and we were very excited at the conference, so I apologize. But my name's Tony Salina. I've been 21 years in public education with here in California. I started my teaching career in Stockton, just down Highway 5. I taught preschool to grad school. I've taught here in Sacramento in Midtown Montessori School while earning my degree at Sac State. I taught 4th and 5th grade. I taught middle school math. I was an elementary and high school principal before becoming associate superintendent and then superintendent with Aspire. I'm teaching future teachers through University of Pacific and future administrators through the San Joaquin County Office of Ed. I've dedicated my entire career to teaching and learning in the public arena. I'm currently the executive director with regional director for Aspire Public Schools. We have 16 schools operating with 7,500 students in the area. My role is almost identical to local superintendents. I oversee teaching and learning, development, curriculum, implementation, pedagogy, college pathways, data analysis, and more. My peer superintendents and I have attended the same conferences and collaborate together to help improve student outcomes. At our schools, the vast majority of our students qualify for free and reduced lunch, and many are first-generation college goers. We have a 96% graduation rate and have dual enrollment partnerships with San Joaquin Delta College, Modesto Junior College, Los Rios College, CSU, and University of Pacific, so that our students can get credits while still in high school. Some graduate with their associate's degree. These are the outcomes we want for all of our students. We all want what's best for the most vulnerable students, and we're trying to provide that. As a public school educator, we know the work is hard, the hours are long, the work is personal and emotional, and there's never enough resources. However, my colleagues in the charter arena persist because it's essential, and we believe it is valued and appreciated. I've been dutifully paying into STRS for 21 years now, and I've met with a STRS retirement advisor, and I've not been allowed to pay into Social Security because I am a STRS member. My wife and I and 2 sons have relied on the pension promise that was made. I'm an educator at heart, and it breaks my heart that despite my entire career in public education, I could potentially be denied my retirement. So we know you can and will do the right thing for California educators. Thank you.
Our last speaker will be Matt.
Good afternoon. My name is Matt Watson, and I work for iLead Schools. This is my 30th year in education, and yeah, I'm starting to look forward to retirement. I started my career in Los Angeles Unified School District before moving to a charter school much closer to my home in Santa Clarita. There I taught 3rd and 4th grade before being promoted to principal. In 2014, I took a position in our central office where I've spent the last decade supporting our public schools by designing curriculum for our public school students, coaching and supporting our public school teachers and our public school principals. My colleagues and I work hard to provide a high-quality public school education. We deserve our full service credit toward our pension. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you for your comment. That is the conclusion of public comment.
Thank you, Samantha. Okay, Tom, take 2.
Are we going backward? Here we go. All right, so the economic impact study. Some history on the study. The last study was conducted in 2012. Every year, our governmental relations team produces these legislative data sheets. This is a custom snapshot of CalSTRS in each legislative district. They refresh it every year. Small little piece of that, there was a snapshot for the economic impact. And we used the 2012 data for several years, and then as it started to age, we decided, well, since the data sheets are updated annually, we should go ahead and create new impact models. So since 2019, we've created 173 impact models every year. That's 40 for the state Senate, 80 for the state Assembly, 53, now 52 for congressional districts in California. And so since the study is new, we're putting it on calstrs.com. There's actually, in addition to the economic impact snapshot, there's going to be a QR code where legislators or anybody can scan it. It'll take them to the landing page for the study, and they can look up further details about the impacts in their district. So the methodology of the study, 3 steps. First, we needed to get the data. We used our 1099 data from the 2022-2023 fiscal year. Again, 1099 data is the tax reporting information that's sent to benefit recipients at the end of the year. They actually have them in hand right now. They're probably busy doing their taxes, or like some of us are busy not doing our taxes. But we used 1099 data. It showed that in 22-23 there was $19.9 billion of benefits paid. And then when you filter that for California, reduces to about 84% of that, $16.8 billion of benefits went into California. Then we needed to model the way that these benefits are spent. So for that, we turned to the U.S. Bureau of Labor Statistics, their Consumer Expenditure Survey. This survey captures the nation's household buying habits. So what do people spend on their housing, on their utilities, on their food, on their entertainment? And so we further refined that data. We selected this demographic category, survey respondents who are over 65 and live in the West. So with that demographic profile, we felt that was a nice proxy to model how benefits are spent, and so we use that to model spending habits. And then to actually model the impact, we use a modeling software called InPlan. InPlan was actually developed by the federal government. The U.S. Forest Service started it in the 70s. They partnered with the University of Minnesota to create the model. So they used that for about a decade and a half. In the early 90s, the University of Minnesota started taking commercial orders for InPlan. And then in 2013, InPlan is now a fully private enterprise, and we've been using it ever since to do our modeling. So there's three levels of models that are, or three levels of impact that are captured with the model. I'll use the example of going to dinner as I explain how these all work. So let's say you go to dinner, maybe buy some appetizers, you get an entree, maybe some dessert. That is measured as the direct impact. That's the initial expenditure in the model. And then in response to that dinner, the restaurant will go to its supply chain, get more vegetables, more meat, more mozzarella sticks. And so those business-to-business purchases within the supply chain, those are reflected as an indirect impact. And then finally, the model captures income that's earned by the server who served you, the manager of the restaurant, the owners of the restaurant, if it was, say, a mom and pop shop, the delivery driver who delivered the extra supplies. All of that's captured as what's called induced impact. So all that to say that ripple from that initial benefit expenditure is captured in the numbers that we're going to see. A quick snapshot of where benefit recipients live. So there were 352,000 recipients via the 1099s. About 289,000 of them live in California at about 82%. So 82% of benefit recipients live in California, and about 84% of the benefits are paid in California. We do have benefit recipients, of course, living in all 50 states and even in other spots across the world. Okay, so on to the impact. So benefit expenditures support 103,400 jobs in California. Now, if benefit expenditures were an industry in and of itself, and you ranked all the industries in California, that level of job support would rank in the top 100 of California industries. And to give you some context for that 100,000, provided some comps here. So you've got the segment of the construction industry that builds educational buildings, museums, libraries. That industry supports 105,000 jobs. Sports agents, modeling agents, talent managers, arena promoters. You know, when you think about California's entertainment industry, Steph Curry, LeBron James, Shohei Ohtani, all of Marvel's Avengers in Hollywood, and all the aspiring actors and actresses and models, they all have agents and talent managers. All the concerts in California, that all supports 104,000 jobs, and that's equivalent to the jobs supported by California CalSTRS benefit spending. So based on that comp, we've actually called this the Jerry Maguire impact. Income. So like I mentioned, the server, the restaurant manager, the owners of the restaurant, the delivery driver, they earn income as a result of the benefits that were spent that night in the restaurant. Again, the level of income is $7.2 billion. Again, if CalSTRS benefit spending was an industry, that would also rank in the top 100. And then some comps for that level of income generated: elder home care, nursing home services, hospice care services, landscape and horticulture services. So you imagine how ever-present those industries are. Benefit spending is equivalent to that in terms of income generation. There's also value added. Now, value added is the contribution to California's GDP. GDP, of course, is gross domestic product. It is the final value of all goods and services produced. You hear California, quoted as a $3.9 trillion economy, fifth largest in the world. That's based on GDP, and benefit spending contributes $14 billion to that. And again, that would also rank by GDP as a top 100 California industry. Some comps there. Dental offices, wow, who knew? 14 billion. You know, if you look at GDPs for countries around the world, GDP of Bahamas, 13 billion. GDPs of Madagascar is about 15 billion. Californians in their teeth, right in the middle of that, 14 billion. So it looks like we care about our teeth to the extent of a small island nation. And then maybe some harmony here, so community colleges, universities, professional schools. So that industry also generates 14.2 billion in value added to California's economy. In addition to the impacts, there's also tax revenue that's generated. And there's two sources of that tax revenue. One that's not pictured here is the immediate tax withholding from that 16.8 billion. So that amount totals 2.2 billion. Roughly 1.7 billion goes to the federal government. About 540 million goes to the state of California. So that goes right off the bat, and that's for government use for their operations and programs and services. Then, as a result of the benefits spent and that ripple through the economy, there's additional tax revenue generated to the tune of $3.8 billion. Okay, and that comes from sales tax, from corporate taxes, also comes from income tax from those, again, the server, the manager, the restaurant owners. They pay income tax as well. $3.8 billion. Half of that goes to the federal government, $1.9 billion. The state of California gets over $1 billion of that for use in their operations. And then county and local governments also get 763 million in tax revenue. So in total, the 2.2 in tax withholding, 3.8 in tax revenue generation through benefit spending. That's $6 billion of tax revenue generated from CalSTRS benefit payments. Another level of analysis we looked at, is there additional impact based on the region of the state? So what we did is we took the value added per each county's economy, and then we compared that to the size of that county's economy. So we did that through counties 1 through 58. What we see here, this is the top 10 in that the benefit has the most impact in these top 10 counties. And to be clear, benefits do go to all 58 counties in the state, but the pattern you might notice here is that it's not the major economic hubs of the state. It's not San Francisco area, it's not Los Angeles, it's not San Diego. So the benefits have a bigger impact in some of these smaller regional economies and these rural communities. So to summarize, benefit spending by the numbers, benefit spending supports over 100,000 jobs in California, generates $7.2 billion in income for business owners and employees, generates $14 billion of value added to California's economy, and $6 billion in tax revenue distributed to all levels of government. You know, and then there's also benefit beyond the numbers. The first I mentioned how the benefit reaches all parts of the state, you know, with notable impact in smaller regional economies and rural communities. Also, the fact that the CalSTRS benefit provides a stable and reliable source of income regardless of the economic climate. So CalSTRS has been paying benefits for over 100 years. You know, in that century plus, we've probably seen, you know, nearly every economic climate you can imagine, you know, and probably a couple no one could have imagined, yet CalSTRS has never missed a payment. So it goes to show that it's a very durable economic driver. And then the final point, you know, members choose their careers, students need educators, communities need educators, healthy economies need educators. So they certainly have an impact during their working years, but then as they earn that benefit, receive that benefit, and then spend that benefit to boost their local economy, it just goes to show that it reflects how members continue to support their communities even after their careers. So that completes my comments about the research. I'm happy to answer any questions.
Okay, we have one. Mr. Warris.
Yes. So this is a gold mine of information. It really is. I mean, it shows the impact that we have in funding teachers' retirements in the various communities they come from. And so my question to you is, how can we use that? In what way would it be beneficial for us to be imparting that information, in particular at the local level, so that they understand the value of the retirement benefit, not just to the retiree, but obviously to the regions in which those retirees retire?
Yeah, so like I said, the study will be on CalSTRS.com, and you know we can talk to Karen, our Director of Communications, about the communication plan around it. Joycelyn Martinez-Wade, our Director of Governmental Relations, she takes, like I said, those legislative data sheets go to all the legislators. So they'll be able to see the custom impact in their district. And then on top of that, we've added that QR code, kind of the legislative data sheet 2.0. They can scan, they can look at the study, they can look at the benefits, the impacts in their specific districts. But otherwise, yeah, I mean, I think it's going to be out there publicly and spread the word as much as you can, because again, it's a reflection of the value of the benefit for the sake of the member's retirement, and then the value to California that this durable economic driver goes out year after year, and now century after century even.
Thank you. Any other questions? Okay, seeing none, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Are there any public comments on item number 7? I'm going to take that as a no.
I think that's fair.
All right, on to item number 8, enterprise sustainability activities and annual report. Lisa, Scott, and Nancy, welcome. How did his name disappear? I didn't get
I'm waiting for the presentation to come up.
that. Was weird.
Did you hear that?
Yeah, Jonathan's got it.
Here we go. Okay, thank you, Chair Bradford, members of the board. Today we're here with an informational update on enterprise sustainability. This is an annual update of our activities across CalSTRS, which the board requested in April of 2022. Today, Scott and I are joined by Nancy Mancia from the ISOS Group, which is our enterprise sustainability consultant. So sustainability defines our approach and commitment to serving our members over the long term for decades to come. And in 2021, we created an overarching view of sustainability at CalSTRS to align investments and enterprise activities. This was a very intentional effort to create a singular vision of sustainability across CalSTRS. While the world has changed and continues to change, we remain doing what is important for us for organizational sustainability. We continue to publish our annual sustainability report, which outlines our strategic approach and our activities. And we've created the organizational alignments that we set out to do back in 2021, which we'll illustrate today. In the middle of the chart, you see the path to net zero for the investment portfolio, aligning with the enterprise's sustainable operations. In addition to greenhouse gas emission management, our operations include the stewardship of our natural resources at headquarters and the member service centers. And you'll hear more about the path to net zero and the diversity in the management of investments in the investment committee in May. Now I'll hand it over to Scott.
Great, thank you, Lisa. Excuse me. Sustainability is important across enterprise and investments. Today, managing risk is more important than ever. We talked at length about that yesterday. It's also important for other reasons. For example, in our enterprise, managing people and our partners, moving to sustainable operations, and back to investments, we make our investments from the lens of risk and return. We don't make them based on policies or politics. And so another way to say that this is every deal competes on its own merits. And there's no favorable policies that we're looking for when we make our sustainable investments. I'm also pleased to report strong alignment across the enterprise and the investment staff, educating and catalyzing our staff, and in other ways like our annual sustainability reporting, which the board can monitor our activities. We also walk the talk. I'm really happy to say that, between how we implement sustainability in the organization and how we engage our partners as well. Other ways, our executive staff regularly attends meetings with our SIS team, providing input and insight to ensure strategic and operational alignment between all parts of our organization. And the investments and administration branches regularly co-present updates to the board. You heard Lisa talk about the diversity, equity, inclusion initiatives. Next slide, please. Now let me just dive into our alignment activities in a bit more detail. Cassandra, Lisa, and I, we're really we're asking every person in the organization to get up to speed in their space on sustainability. That's how we're going to achieve our objectives ultimately. So we've created sustainability education opportunities for our employees. And let me just touch on 4 of them. Number 1, the investment branch and the enterprise team, we co-deliver a Net Zero Investment Academy module for the investments branch staff. So we offer this Net Zero Sustainable Operations class twice a year. Number 2, our investments and enterprise staff co-presented a sustainability roadshow to our customer services staff. Number 3, our enterprise team delivered a roadshow to the admin branch last week and we're going to be delivering similar roadshows in the future. And finally, number 4, in the spring of 2025, we'll introduce a new sustainability module within the annual enterprise risk and compliance training for all employees. And again, this is about energizing, educating, and catalyzing all of our employees towards these objectives. I'll hand it back to you, Lisa.
Okay. In late February, we published our 11th annual sustainability report that evaluates our impacts and holds ourselves accountable to our members, employees, and key stakeholders. The report shows how we act as sustainability leaders, and we do what we ask of others. It integrates the reporting of our various business areas, illustrating how their work creates a sustainable organization. It reports on the sustainability-related measures, commitments to improvement, and next step initiatives and activities. And it includes our sustainable operations and enterprise greenhouse gas emissions data, which aligns with our investment portfolio net zero efforts. I'd like to share just a few highlights from this year's report. For member retirement readiness, we focus educational actions to help our members understand the value of supplemental savings. This year, we reported that collectively, our members have contributed $2.5 billion into CalSTRS Pension II as of June 30th, 2024, which is up $2.1 billion from the year before. And we had nearly 7,000 members age 44 and under receive educational services, which is a hard to reach a group of people, and so we're really proud of that. From a human capital management perspective, we discuss our approach to leadership competencies, recruitment, retention, and succession planning. In this year's report, we disclosed that we exceeded our employee retention target of 90%, with a result of 93% employees retained. And how we measure that, retention is the percentage of employees who remained at CalSTRS from the first day of the fiscal year to the last day of the fiscal year. So we retained 93 people, only 7% of the organization went somewhere else. The report also references the Global Reporting Initiative Universal Standards, so I'm going to pass it off to Nancy right now to talk about GRI as an organization and their reporting standards.
Good afternoon, Board. It's a pleasure to be here with you. Nancy Mancia. I was the founder of ISOS Group, now a division of Environment and Energy. We were contracted about 4 years ago to start assisting the organization with understanding what were the material topics. We've heard some key concepts presented here already today: impacts, supply chain. There's a various number of standards that help guide us in this practice, and we can flip to the next slide. The one that CalSTRS has really pioneered for the pension fund industry, basically, or sector, is GRI, the Global Reporting Initiative. That standard is based in the Netherlands. It's a nonprofit organization that has really set the tone for how organizations of all types, all sizes, report on their environmental, social, and governance impacts. Though we see these 3 pillars here, there's several metrics, both qualitative, quantitative, that support organizations in being able to prove or demonstrate performance over time in what's material. So for CalSTRS, being that it's the 11th report now, we started looking at materiality about 7 years ago, tested it 4 years ago, we retested last year. That process considers various research. So we do a lot of desktop research. We speak to various internal stakeholders, so those that really champion efforts across the organization. So we've spoken to a lot of people that are already here today to understand how impacts are managed, where there are policies, where there are goals, targets, where data lies. And from there, we're able to advise the organization on, again, what's most relevant for them. So given that we selected these material topics about 4 years ago and we did that retest recently, that was just a reinforcement that you're on the right track. The organization has always been a pioneering organization at this, and so now it's a matter of what's the next frontier? Where do you go to further operationalize this. So through trainings, through helping, again, members understand the value that the organization is trying to create for them, that's the next frontier. Anything else, if you all have any questions about the practice or the standards or where we're at in this process, you can ask away afterwards. Thank you.
Thank you.
Lisa?
I'll talk a little bit about the California legislation with emission targets. So this legislation applies specifically to enterprise greenhouse gas emissions here at 100 and 200 Waterfront, and it excludes any investment portfolio emissions. For some background, CalSTRS has measured and reported our enterprise greenhouse gas emissions since 2005, and we include results in our annual sustainability report. These include Scope 1 emissions, which are direct emissions from fuel combustion for heating, and also from our tiny fleet of 4 vehicles. And then Scope 2 emissions, which are indirect emissions, are associated with the purchase of electricity. For Senate Bill 1203, DGS is really taking the lead. They're responsible to set the greenhouse gas reduction targets for the state overall and to assist with collaboration between agencies and manage the overall effort. And they hired GLUMAC, which is a consultant with expertise in emissions. So they'll be working together, and GLUMAC will create a decarbonization action and investment plan for all state agencies in September of 2025 for review, and then publish the plans by January of 2026. And like other state agencies, our CalSTRS staff are assisting GLUMAC with information collection, participating in meetings, and providing input and feedback. We'll be reviewing the final deliverables later this year. And just to kind of give you some context, there's 10 agencies that make up 90% of the greenhouse gas emissions across the state. So we're in the little 10% slice, just to give you some context. For both of these pieces of legislation, we'll continue to work with DGS and report progress to the state and in our sustainability report as appropriate. And for Senate Bill 1020, we're producing clean energy on site, because you know that we've got solar panels on both buildings. So that's a plus. But we anticipate we'll need to procure additional energy from our utility partners to comply with this bill. And that's also DGS's responsibility, is to work with our local utilities to find out how they're gonna come up to speed so agencies like us can actually buy clean energy from them. So more to come on that. And then finally, next steps. We'll always keep our members in mind as the foundation for pursuing organizational sustainability. It is with intent and purpose to fulfill our mission that we will continue to ensure organizational sustainability alignment across our branches, deliver sustainability education to our employees and key stakeholders, and report on our sustainability efforts and results on a regular basis. And that concludes our presentation, so we're open to questions.
Thank you. Ms. Gallegos.
Hoping you can hear me here. Do either of those pieces of legislation require Scope 3 emissions disclosure?
Not these two, no, just Scope 1 and 2. And there's some agencies that aren't even, don't even know how to gather their Scope 1 and 2. So it's gonna take a while from a statewide perspective.
Thank you.
Ms. Hendricks.
Thanks for this, and I just appreciate, I feel like CalSTRS has led the way in so many ways, and I have to just shout out Jack Enos. You know, I kind of hear him right now as we're talking about this, because I know he was instrumental with GRI and this work. So when I see that sustainability report, I'm so glad that Cassandra continues, you know, to lead in that space. But I just kind of feel like I need to, Jack, if you're watching, you know, thank you for that. I did have a question around it, maybe for you as kind of a consultant in this space. How do you see other kind of, I guess, quasi-government agencies doing this kind of work, like the sustainability report that we do enterprise? And clearly we're trying to, you know, have it be really about enterprise and the investment committee, so it's not bifurcated anymore. So I'm really glad to see Scott and Lisa working on this together. Do you see that happening in other, I know it's happening in the private sector, but maybe you could speak to the public sector a little more, or government agencies.
Yeah, so in our research, we did evaluate other government agencies to see what they're doing. For pension funds, CalSTRS is really one of the only ones that are trying to combine both and reporting a lot on enterprise level. Most of the others report it just on the investment side, but it's not necessarily what's happening within their control, right? It's how they're influencing investments. Other state agencies, so we've seen like the environmental agency of Washington State's environmental agency producing reports for several years, and they do both what's in their control and then what's outside their control. So it's more or less like an integrated report. We've been working towards integration or suggesting integration at some level for some years, but it takes a lot of work. I mean, it's so much even to draw this bit of information together. And if it's not something that's dictated by the government of the state or the federal government, then it's really hard to see that happen at an agency level because it's voluntary. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Okay, is there any public comment on item number 8?
There is no public comment for item 8.
Thank you. Thank you very much for your presentation and all the good information. Item 9, Pension Solution Project Update. Yay. Yay. Hi, welcome.
Good afternoon. My name is Ashish Jain, Chief Technology Officer and Executive Sponsor of this project. The team is making a good progress in the project, and today you will hear more about the project update from Anthony and the oversight perspective. But before we'll start, Steve, you raised a very good question last meeting. The team is working on the details and we'll present that one to the May board meeting. Over to Anthony.
Thanks, Ashish. Good afternoon, Chair Bradford, members of the board. Anthony Sweeney, Pension Solution Project Director. Today I'll be providing the latest progress on the project, and then I'll pass it over to Chris to give you his IPOC report and observations. In my presentation today, I will have updates on current project metrics, general project updates focused on our upcoming training and communication efforts, and a status on the budget and an upcoming contract approval. This is our overall project schedule metric identifying our 5 most critical work streams, and this has changed slightly from when you last saw it in January. In January, UAT was green, but I had mentioned it was trending towards yellow as we were falling behind in our planned pass rates. So UAT is now yellow as a result, and I have more data to share on progress and corrective actions we're taking a little bit later in my presentation. I will also be updating this metric in future meetings to adjust the critical work streams we are reporting on and shift the focus more towards transformation readiness and implementation activities and less on technical testing, as we just recently closed out our major technical testing activity, which is system integration test. So speaking of SIT, or system integration tests, we're excited to say that we have closed out our 18-month system integration testing effort. We've accomplished a lot during this 18-month period that began in July 2023 as we came out of our interim services period. This graphic depicts several of the milestones that we've accomplished over this 18 months. We completed 6 test streams that were each 3 months in duration, and these streams were grouped with functionality that allowed us to start UAT earlier and overlap the last 3 months of SIT. During this time, we passed 3,250 test scripts. And as we set out to accomplish an SIT, we had more of a partnership with Sagitech, where we reviewed test cases before they were executed by them and then validated the results once they were deemed passed. As of the end of February, we had validated 99.5% of those 3,250 test cases. Through this validation process, it's allowed us to make minor modifications to the designs and requirements that we felt would better help us do our job once we implemented. while we have closed out SIT, we still continue to validate. There's about 50 remaining test cases for us to validate, and we'll continue to address any issues accordingly. We also resolved over 9,000 defects during our identified testing period, which included adjustments to the design or true fixes to the code, and some that were closed because they turned out not to be issues, such as duplicates or training issues that were identified. Also, during this 18-month period, we incorporated 11 new change requests that were not in the original design when we started SIT. These changes accounted for over 200 additional test cases, and they were primarily due to new legislation such as Secure 2.0 that had tax reporting changes and required minimum distribution changes, and AB 1667 that impacted member overpayments and employer receivables. As we came to the end of our SIT period, there were two complex processes that still needed additional discussion on requirements and design. Those were 1099 reporting and our 415B program requirements. We anticipate approximately 15 test cases that still need to be completed and executed for those processes. But we do need additional time to finalize the design and make sure it's right. We have mutually agreed to move these test cases to our implementation phase, and we'll complete this by the end of May. With the closeout of SIT, the efforts of our business and Sagitech team are now heavily focused on completing user acceptance testing. That brings me to UAT. As of the end of February, our team had executed 350 of our 435 test scripts, and we had passed nearly 50% with 211, and we had 139 scripts in a failed state. Today, we're at 381 passed, and 381 executed and 235 passed, and about 147 that are failed. So continue to make progress there. And while we've seen great progress in UAT, we're still tracking slightly over 20% off our original plan target, as you can see here. And much of this gap has been due to a focus of all our teams focused on closing out the system integration test period. That's been our primary and immediate priority. So while this is concerning, I believe we can get back on plan for a variety of reasons. In addition to now being able to focus primarily on UAT, we have added new testing environments to increase availability for our testers to execute and re-execute test cases. We have increased the triage of blocking issues to help with the throughput of test cases. We're working with Sagitech on the proper prioritization of defect fixes. And we're looking to increase the frequency of our data and application deployments to our test environment. We've also developed more clear guidelines for our UAT support and business teams. And another important fact is we stayed on plan with our test case executions. We've executed 85% of all those 435 test cases. So we're flushing out the defects at the proper rate. We just need to focus more on resolving and retesting those test cases. So for all those reasons, I'm confident we'll see improvements over the next 2 months and still maintain our UAT completion date by the end of June. This view is our view of test cases across all our business areas, as you've seen before. You can see the failed test cases are spread across our 4 major business areas: financial services, disability, survivor benefit, and service retirement. As I mentioned before, this is not unexpected due to the complexity of these areas and the sheer volume of test cases in each of those areas. The teams are aware of what's blocking the passing of the test cases and meet daily to help resolve the issues and ensure that things continue to move. So as the teams, many of our teams are busy testing functionality. We also have our transformation readiness teams gearing up to prepare the organization for the new system. A major component of that is our training efforts by our learning and development team and others. 2 weeks ago, we celebrated the milestone of all training development materials being completed. And last week, we kicked off our Train the Training efforts, where dedicated trainers from each of the business areas are learning the course content and how to deliver that out to the end user staff. They learn in a multitude of ways, from instructor-led training to computer-based training, and then we'll have the opportunity of hands-on labs where they can enhance their skills. This training and development effort has been a tremendous collaboration between our projects learning and development team and our dedicated business area trainers. I did invite several of the training team here today. I'd just like to take this opportunity to recognize their efforts over the last several years to get to this point where we're actually delivering training. So I'd like to ask them to stand and be recognized. They've been at this waiting for this time when they were
working
actually
very hard for last
deliver.
Thank you.
So here you can see the timeline of our training efforts. Train the Trainer has started. It'll last till June. Then the end user staff will begin immediately after that and last until September. During this time, the trainers are also working hard to incorporate any changes or workarounds that come out of our continued testing efforts. So it's a constant iteration of improvements there. So in addition to preparing our teams for Go Live, we're also working on plans to get our stakeholders prepared. It's important that I keep the board aware of our plans to how we're communicating with those external stakeholders. So we have a master communication plan that will cover our stakeholder outreach, but also tactical communication plans that are integrated into that master plan for our employers, our members, and our other stakeholders. These tactical plans detail every element of the communication, but also are flexible and will change as we approach Go Live. These are the types of messages we intend to communicate to our members, from reminding them of why we embarked on this journey in the first place, to the benefits that they will see, to impacts, including downtimes and expected delays in service levels, as well as when we plan to go live and where they can get assistance if they have questions. We plan to communicate these messages in a variety of ways to capture the various demographics of our members and ensuring they are receiving these messages through one or more channels. This includes communication leading up to Go Live and what to expect, and then even beyond Go Live with videos and publications on how they can use the new functionality. We have already started to develop some of those videos, and our teams from Public Affairs, the project, and our business teams are collaborating on what the right messages should be. We intended to send our first communication via email later this month, but we plan to delay that until April to let our members and our contact center get through the tax season first. We don't want to overwhelm them. So planning the communication strategically. And then the frequency and the detail of the communication will wrap up as we get closer to Go Live. So in addition to our members, we are also collaborating to send tailored communications to our employers, with the end goal being to ensure our 93 reporting sources understand their responsibilities and are prepared for the new processes and system changes that will impact them. So looking beyond the system functionality and implementation, I wanted to provide a little more information on efforts we're undertaking to transition our project team to a program division. I've previously shared some high-level details, but I wanted to reinforce what we've done to this point. We have researched models at other Sagitech clients, reviewed best practices, and have more recently began working on budget and HR needs necessary to make this happen. Our ultimate goal is to be able to support our new system, Benefit Connect, for the long term and reduce the reliance on our vendor partners down the road in the future. Things have been progressing well on this timeline, And HR and financial services have been great partners to get us further down the path than we've even expected to be at this point. We've also met with the Department of Finance to share our plans, which does propose 39 new positions while also leveraging staff and budget from our legacy system decommissioning efforts. We will bring back more details on the plan, position, and budgets at the May board meeting and ultimately prepare a budget request for you to review this fall. The goal is to start assembling this team in the 26-27 fiscal year and be functioning as a new division in fiscal year 27-28. So this is our usual budget view. It shows we're still on track with our budget spending plan through go live, in addition to our post-implementation budget for maintenance and operations as well. As I mentioned, we met with Department of Finance in January and shared project status updates and metrics, in addition to sharing that project to program plan. The meeting went well, and we are scheduled again to meet next month. Lastly, I'd just like to mention in a separate contract agenda item, 14D, you'll see a request for board approval on a non-competitive bid extension for our independent project oversight consultant, Guidehouse. The current contract expires in May. I think we would all agree there is value to retaining Guidehouse through the end of the project. Bringing in a new vendor in that role at this point would really not make a lot of sense, which is the reason behind the non-competitive bid extension. The extension will retain Guidehouse until next May, which will get us through go live and more than 6 months of maintenance and operations. And it also gives us flexibility to keep them beyond if the board desires. So that concludes my presentation, and I'm happy to take any questions.
I think let's hear from Chris and then we'll.
Yep.
Thank you.
That was a lot, so if you do have questions for him, it might be okay. Thanks. Good afternoon, everyone. Chris Caboti with Guidehouse and our independent oversight update. As Anthony mentioned, the project saw a key milestone with the completion of system integration testing. That was a significant effort for both CalSTRS and Sagitech. And again, the collaboration that he talked about was key to making that more effective than testing that had happened in the past. And I think it was specifically they reviewed a lot of those test cases before they executed them. They actually made quite a few changes to those to make sure that they were up to date and that they were as effective as they could be. So again, it achieved its objectives, and it was a big milestone for the project to hit. It's important to note, and something I want to remind the board of and everyone, is that even though we've done this much testing to date, the 9,000 defects resolved, 3,000 test cases there, a lot more testing is ongoing with UAT, and there's other technical tests going on as well. By the time we get to the end, a lot of testing will have happened, a lot of defects will have been resolved. It's not going to catch everything. So I want to remind everyone that that's okay, that as we work closer to go live and do additional project activities such as soft launch and these other things that you'll hear about, there's a potential for additional defects and things to be brought to the surface that previously weren't found. And even after go live, obviously in production, things will be found. That's normal, that's to be expected, of course, to certain thresholds. So we'll watch for that from now through the M&O period as we're in there. But again, it's something to keep in mind and be aware of. It's a lot of testing, it's found a lot of things, but there is still stuff out there that will need to be resolved. The key there is having the processes in place to analyze, triage, resolve as necessary, right? And those processes are what are important, and they're there now, and they will be in M&O. But it's making sure that as we get closer to go live, especially, that those get a lot of scrutiny to understand what the actual impact would be to go live and to the system if we went live without resolving them ahead of time. So again, that risk analysis will be important. On the UAT side, it is behind, as Anthony mentioned. Currently, we've had a lot of conversations with the testing team, the UAT team, and project leadership around how that's going. We've had conversations around process improvements that Anthony mentioned. Those are going to be put in place. And so we expect that acceleration that he talked about to occur, and we're more comfortable that UAT will hit its dates and that it'll be, again, hit the objectives similar to system integration testing. And finally, as he mentioned, there's a lot of activities that are going as we transition from technical testing, which has been really the crux of this for the last couple of years. We've talked really about those metrics that you've seen and the number of test cases and defects. That's starting to transition over into actual implementation activities. These things called cutover, where you actually move from one system to the other. They're going to tell you about dry runs where they pretend to do that and kind of a pseudo cutover to see how that works. They're doing things like the work stream exit criteria that talks about how each of those work streams that the project's working on right now, how they're going to be determined to be complete. So those are things that are going to help decision makers make calls on whether we should continue to move forward at different checkpoints. So those activities are what you'll hear a lot about in the future as we kind of, again, transition from that testing, and we'll continue to bring that to you. But we're involved in seeing how those processes are going, how they're communicated, how the decision makers are being brought along and educated in that area. And that's happened, and it's been happening quite a bit. So there's a lot of activity there, along with the training that's ready to go too. So it's a lot, and we're here to answer any questions about it if you have any.
Okay, thank you. Thank you for the information. Can we go back to Anthony's slides, page 11? External member key messages. One thing that I focused on is the blackout periods, and I think I've mentioned it to you before, but who does it actually affect? How long of a period? Have you taken into consideration of when that's going to happen and for how long?
Yes, Karen, I can't get to the slide, but you already touched on what you want me to comment on. Yeah, so that blackout period, that will, we're still working through that. As Chris mentioned, the dry runs, you gave me an opportunity to plug. Our first dry run is going on. It started this week and everything's on target. We're even a little bit ahead of schedule of the number of days we plan to be blacked out, or the systems will be down. So it will affect everybody. It'll affect the staff. They won't be able to process transactions during that downtime. It'll affect our members. They won't be able to do online transactions. They'll still be able to reach out to us, the contact center, and we'll be able to provide information and capture notes. But no transactional type of data during that period of time. It's typically, looking at about a 2-week period, somewhere between 8 to 10 business days of downtime. That's a typical time frame. And really what's happening there is you're extracting all the data out of the old system, converting it to the new system, making sure it's working properly, bringing it back up. And so that's what to expect. And so we would provide more information on that to
And then advance notice will be given to our members and staff and.
Absolutely.
And then anything that can be done, can they, like you said, there are going to be notes taken and everything, so it can be backdated to the day when actual things were, actual members contacted us, so that it doesn't affect those dates.
Correct.
Okay.
Time stamped. Yes.
Cassandra wanted to comment.
I just wanted to make the comment that this is really has the full attention of the executive staff. We're working with the project team and getting a catalog of all the different areas that could be impacted, the timing of those, what alternatives we have, communication strategies. So we are definitely keeping a close pulse on this.
I've asked this in offline, so I just wanted to make sure that the public were aware that all these are under consideration and having careful thought. So thank you.
We're trying to minimize that downtime as much as we can.
Thank you.
I just want to say thank you for always meeting with Karen and I and keeping us up to date. Just so the board knows that we do check in between times. And we're getting excited. It's getting closer. So thank you for all of your hard work on that.
Thanks.
Are there any public comments on item number 9?
There are no members of the public in the queue for item 9.
Okay, perfect. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you. I want a go live sticker.
There's one right here.
Oh, is there?
Let me give you one.
Oh, okay. Oh, yay.
There you go. Okay, item number 10, state and federal legislation. We have a few items here. Joycelyn?
Good afternoon, Madam Chair, members of the board. Looking forward to all of these items. Starting with number 10, this is a brief informational update on legislation. So I'll let you know that the bill introduction deadline in the state legislature passed on February 21st. So we've been combing through all of the bills that have been introduced to see if any affect CalSTRS. I don't have any thus far that I'm bringing to you for a position, but we'll be looking into a few more to evaluate some of the details to see if we would need to bring those back to you in May. We did also see a lot of spot bills and intent bills introduced, and so those will potentially get amended. They now have spot bill deadlines. I say now have spot bill deadlines in the legislature. When I worked there weren't deadlines, but March 17th for the Assembly, March 27th for the Senate, and so we're keeping an eye on any of those changes. Our housekeeping bill didn't get introduced by the Senate Labor, Public Employment, and Retirement Committee. It's SB 853. And I'll let you know that AB 65, the pregnancy leave bill for educators, was up in Assembly Education Committee yesterday, and it passed out with a unanimous vote. So I'm happy to take any questions, but those are the updates I have for you today.
Any questions on item 10? Are there any public comments on item 10?
There's no public comment for item 10.
Okay. What? Oh, sorry, Harry.
Thank you, Madam
Chair
Chair.
Keeley.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So I wasn't here in January, and it was at that meeting that it was acknowledged that the Social Security offset legislation was passed and signed. And I just want to be on the record. I mean, I've watched that legislation for decades, and there were literally, and I'm careful to use this term, heroes like Ed Foley, who fought for decades to try to improve an injustice and make it right for tens of thousands of people, hardworking middle-class Americans. And I believe in miracles because I've experienced them myself. And I can say to you, the passage of that legislation was nothing short of miraculous. And I was disappointed that I wasn't able to be here in January to acknowledge someone like Ed Foley and the countless others, but Ed hasn't been at the meetings recently. And I wanted to just say how much I love that man and all those people who thought of trying to make something right that was wrong. And most people, the vast majority, said it will never happen. And you know what? It did, because of people like Ed Foley and those heroic people who tried to make something right that was wrong. And I have so much respect for people who stayed the course, never gave up. And it will make a huge difference in people's lives between paying for their medical bills or maybe going out for dinner. And, you know, those things are just, they touch me, and I think it's really important for me to be on the record to express my gratitude and appreciation to people who stayed the course, made that possible, because it's a great lesson for me, for my children, and for others. Stay the course, never give up, and believe in miracles.
Yes. Amen, brother.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you. Yes.
Okay, item 11 is an action item, Assembly Bill 1997.
Yes, AB 1997 is the board-sponsored bill from last year that simplified our statutes around credible compensation in the teacher's retirement law. And one of the responsibilities in that bill is for the board to adopt an effective date. And so we are recommending July 1st, 2027, which is the last date that's allowed, corresponds with the pension solution update you just gave, getting people into the new system, into Benefit Connect, and then making these changes on a school year basis. And so that's the ask, is to approve July 1st, 2027 as the effective date.
Mr. Juarez.
I'd just like to move the item. I've had a chance to talk with Joycelyn about it, and it seems like very straightforward and
Okay.
correct.
It's been moved and seconded. Roll call vote, I assume?
We do public comment first or no?
Oh, is there any public comment on item 11?
There's no public comment for item 11.
Ms. Whitaker,
I'm going to abstain.
Ms. Gallegos,
Aye.
Mr. Keeley,
Aye.
Mr. Tang,
Aye.
Ms. Yamamoto,
Aye.
Ms. Hendricks,
Yes.
Mr. Gunning,
Aye.
Mr. Ruffino,
Yes.
Ms. Sanders,
Aye.
Mr. Juarez,
Aye.
Chairperson Bradford, would you care to vote?
Yes and yes, thank you.
Thank you. Motion passes.
Thank you. Okay, moving on. Item number 12, rulemaking process for creditable compensation simplification regulations.
Thank you,
It's a mouthful.
This is a continuation of the work that's been going on since before 2022, but we saw AB 1667 come through about overpayments, which we'll get to in the next item as well. But the efforts to avoid audit findings, corrections that have to be made by employers, and benefit adjustments and overpayments. So it started with that bill, moved on to a bridging bill of SB 432. Then we had AB 1997 last year. And so now we have the regulations that we're working on with our member and employer partners to flesh out some of the pieces of AB 1997. So making sure that we have definitions of terms introduced in that bill, making sure what documentation is needed for us to understand what a district and their employees are looking at for credible compensation, making sure our existing regulations get aligned with the bill and those kind of things. So these regulations have been drafted. And what we're asking for the board today is that you approve initiation of the formal rulemaking process and direct staff to hold a hearing, I should say, have a public hearing at your board meeting in September.
Okay, we have a few questions. Ms. Gallegos.
Hi, are we approving just the initiation of the rulemaking process, or are we also approving the documentation that came with it? That you provided as well, the attachment 1.
Yes, so the language is what the board would be proposing for the regulations, so we would notice that. And it would be in a couple of months, there would be a 45-day written public comment period in the hearing where we could take verbal comments. And so this is what we're putting forward for the public to review. And again, if they would like to comment on it, they have those opportunities as to how it lines up with the contents of AB 1997. And this obviously would inform how we would move forward with implementation of the bill. So we have those opportunities for public comment. If we do receive it, we would then react to that public comment. We would have formal responses in the final items that go to the Office of Administrative Law. But if there are items of feedback that we receive where we need to change the language, then we would make amendments to the language and have an additional public comment period of 15 to 45 days, depending on how complex those changes were.
Understood. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Mr. Juarez.
Yeah, Joycelyn, so if in fact you received substantive comments that you had to change what was being proposed, would that move back the date of the hearing from September to a later date?
It would not. So we would have the 45-day comment period that would abut the public hearing time, so the month and a half ahead of time approximately. And so we would be gathering the written comments and then the verbal comments, and then we would be reacting to those. And so then if we did have to make additional changes to the language, we would be coming back to the board in November with those amendments. If we don't get any comments, we would be coming back in November for adoption.
All right. With that, I move the item.
Second.
Okay, did you have a question as well?
Yes, I do have a question.
sorry.
I would like to do a second, but I just want to make sure that in doing these comments and the language right now, staff has been working with stakeholders to understand some of the issues that are coming up and be aware of. And so those have been incorporated in the language that we see today?
Yes, absolutely.
4 months, let me just add
Yes,
that. 4
for
months,
for
right?
months,
Years
right.
Many
almost.
months.
Years.
I just want to make sure.
Years.
I just want to be on the record that has been done, and I do second.
Okay. Before we take a vote, I just want to see if there's any public comment on item 12.
There's no public comment for item 12.
Okay, then Jenny, we can take a vote on item 12.
Ms. Whitaker? Ms. Gallegos?
No.
Mr. Keeley?
Aye.
Mr. Tang?
Aye.
Ms. Yamamoto?
Aye.
Ms. Hendricks?
Yes.
Mr. Gunning?
Aye.
Mr. Rufino?
Yes.
Ms. Sanders?
Aye.
Mr. Juarez?
Aye.
Chairperson Bradford, would you care to vote?
Yes and yes.
Motion passes.
Thank you. Okay, that brings us to item number 13, rulemaking process for updates to the administrative remedy regulations.
Wonderful. Moving a little bit backwards in time, but AB 1667 was in the legislature in 2022, and besides dealing with overpayments to members and having responsibility for those overpayments that the member's not responsible for moving to other parties, this bill also had changes to the audit process that we go through with our employers and then the appeals process for those audits. And so with that, we had existing regulations dealing with administrative remedies. So we needed to update those for the audit and employer audit process to line up with the bill. So we made those changes in the set of language that is attached to the item. We also streamlined the administrative remedy process for executive reviews. So that's where a member is asking for an individual review of a decision made by a director, and then beyond that by the executive. And we're also cleaning up some of the definitions to make sure they're aligned and making an older section that we have in the regs, again, not be in conflict with the updated rules. And the request here, similar to the last, is that the board approve initiation of the formal rulemaking process and the scheduling of a public hearing at the September board meeting.
Okay. Mr. Juarez.
Yeah, I'm ready to move the item, but I want to make sure that we've addressed Karen's similar issue from the last one, that we've reached out to stakeholders and in fact they're aware of what's going to be coming down the pike. And with that, I would move the item.
Thank you.
Okay.
Second.
Ken?
I was going to move it, so I'll go ahead and second it.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded. Are there any public comments on item 13?
There's no public comment for item 13.
Okay, vote.
Ms. Whitaker?
Abstain.
Ms. Gallegos?
No.
Mr. Keeley?
Aye.
Mr. Tang?
Aye.
Ms. Yamamoto?
Aye.
Ms. Hendricks?
Aye.
Mr. Gunning?
Aye.
Mr. Rufino?
Yes.
Ms. Sanders?
Abstain.
Mr. Juarez?
Aye.
Chairperson Bradford, would you care to vote?
Yes and yes, thank you.
Thanks. Motion passes.
Okay.
Thank you very much.
Oh, yes, your work here is done. Thank you, Joycelyn. That was a long list, and thank you for.
How did Liz vote?
Stay. Okay. All right. That brings us to the consent agenda, 14A. I can do that without objection, right? Does anyone want to pull anything from 14A? It's the committee reports. Okay. Without objection, Brian, is that okay? All right, without objection, we have moved the consent items. Are there any public comments on any of the 14 items?
No public comment for item 14.
Thank you. All right, that brings us to informational items. I don't believe there were any items referred to the committee for board decision. No? Okay. Review of information.
No, there's
no. Okay, that brings us to 17, the draft agenda for the next meeting. Cassandra, is there anything you'd like to highlight?
Just that we will be doing the actuarial evaluations at that meeting, and we do have moved the finalization of the strategic plan for this meeting as well. So we'll be going over the final draft and the cost components estimates associated with that draft, and that will be the bulk of the full board.
Okay. Thank you. That brings us to item 18. Are there any statements from the public?
We do have a member of the public in the queue. If we could please get a 3-minute timer. Our caller will be over the phone. Megan? Megan, go ahead.
Hello and happy Thursday. Thank you for taking the time today, board. My name is Megan McGarry. I am an American Sign Language interpreter speaking on behalf of our ASL Interpreter Union. We hosted an amazingly successful week of action from February 24th to February 28th, where we boosted our union's visibility. We filed a formal complaint with the FCC, and we successfully elicited the first public response from Sorensen, which is the video relay service company that I work for. Quick reminder that Ariel owns Sorensen and that Blackstone has a 27% stake in the company. We also launched a health and safety survey where hundreds of interpreters responded, and we used that data to compile a public fact sheet that I've already emailed to the board. I wanted to take the time to read a few excerpts from that fact sheet now. 94% of the interpreters that responded said that they experienced work-related pain. 94% of interpreters. Within that group, 95% said that the pace of work in VRS has contributed to occupational injuries and or stress. 96% said that working conditions contribute to physical, emotional, or mental health problems. And 93% said that they do not believe that management would take meaningful action to address their occupational safety and health concerns. I'm one of those interpreters. I reduced my full-time status to part-time last August due to both physical and mental health reasons, and I'm currently on medical leave. In the fall of 2021, a study was published about the cortisol dysregulation that happens to VRS interpreters. It warns against the dangerous working conditions that these companies provide. Last September, I attended a meeting with interpreters and upper management, and I directly asked our Senior Vice President of Global Interpreting Services what actions that Sorensen has taken in the last 3 years since the study was released. She had no answer for me other than to say that they hired one therapist and that VRS is not for everyone. This answer clearly shows their cards. Interpreters are at risk for higher levels of disability claims, chronic disease and injury, and even premature death, directly related to the working conditions that these companies are refusing to change just so that they can earn more money. We are closer than ever to getting Sorensen to agree to meet with us, with our union, but I'm here again to ask the board to help us fight so that we can continue to provide vital services to the deaf community that we love. CalSTRS has over $2.3 billion invested with Blackstone, and I'm just here to ask that you engaged with them about this issue. Thank you so much
for your
time.
comment. That is the conclusion of public comment for item 18.
Thank you, Samantha. Well, we made it to the end of the Teachers Retirement Board. Thank you all for your time and attention and great presentations, and safe travels to my colleagues. We'll see you soon.